Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures. And today we're going to be doing another episode of our Jurassic World Evolution 2 mod spotlights, where we take a look at some of the wonderful mods people have been making and compare them to their real life fossil counterparts. And today it seems like it's going to be a little bit more of a return to tradition, because we've got a few remasters or kind of paleo remodels we've got going on here. So a few of those, which is pretty awesome to see. So kind of almost like a return to form before all these new species came out. But we're going to be starting off with a new species as well today. So we're going to be starting off. This is done by Annoying with the O, and Annoying with the 0. So Annoying, I believe you say that. We've got a really cool dinosaur here. We've got Regaliceratops. We've got to see a really nice dinosaur here. Let's get a pause and then be able to look at one over here. Let's have a look at this one. I like the red color on him. Now we'll have a look at this one because he's better in the light. But this is Regaliceratops. So Regaliceratops means royal horned face, and these guys are a type of chasmosaurian ceratopsian. So they're related animals such as Chasmosaurus and Triceratops. This guy comes from Alberta, Canada, in the late Cretaceous or the Middle Maastrichtian, from about 68 to 67 million years ago, which is the St. Mary River Formation, is where it's from. There's only the one type specimen, and is only known from the adult individual with a nearly complete skull that includes the lower jaw, and the specimen's name is nicknamed Hellboy, and I think it's such a cool name because I love Hellboy, but really awesome. So the skull of the ceratopsid was found in 2005. It was discovered by Peter Hughes on the St. Mary River Formation along the Oldman River in southwestern Alberta. And it was excavated about 2006, and then in 2008, the team of the Royal Tyrrell Museum basically took all the rock off it and kind of showed the specimen, which is really interesting. And the specimen was nicknamed Hellboy because due to the difficulty of the time-consuming extraction and the addition of the hard matrix it was in, and the presence of the small post-orbital hornicles, or horn cores, which is really cool. It kind of gives that look of Hellboy, which is really cool. But the specimen's holotype is basically just the skull and the lower jaw. It's really only missing the rostrum. And it's been deformed a little bit, but you got a pretty good idea of what it looks like. And the specimen is actually known to represent an adult individual. And we can tell that because the cranial elements that are normally not fused together in juveniles are fused together, so or subadults. So these guys, basically those elements had been fused, and the skull was quite of a rugose texture. So it pretty much tells us we're dealing with an adult animal. So Regaliceratops, the Greek name, comes from regalis, which means royal, cera, which is horn, and ops with face. So that's a royal horn face, which is a really cool name. And the scientific name Peter Hughesy comes from the geologist Peter Hughes, who discovered the specimen. So in terms of its size, it's very typical to most other ceratopsians. They would have got about 5 meters long or so, or about 16 feet long, and weighed about 2 metric tons. And we really don't know too much about it because it's only known from the skull. But really interesting characteristics of the skull there. You can kind of see it's got these like 15 horns going along down there. Not too you can see it's got a bigger nose horn than brow horn, which is actually not that typical of a lot of Chasmosaurians, but it's really cool. Really is an interesting animal. And yeah, I did quite like Regaliceratops. It's believed to be in the group Triceratopsinae, so it's related to animals such as Triceratops, Ogoceratops, and kind of more closely related to like Torosaurus and Triceratops and things like that. But it's kind of nestled outside of that. It's more closely related to Acrorhinoceratops and Triceratops, just outside of Triceratopsinae, though some have put it within Triceratopsinae, just depends. But this guy comes from a really interesting formation. The St. Mary River Formation, as I mentioned, is from the Middle Maastrichtian of the late Cretaceous. So this area would have been a floodplain and fluvial environment with sandstones and shales and things like that. and it seems like there was a lot of ferns and conifers and monocot trees around the place, and it would have lived with all sorts of different really cool animals, such as the Nodosaurid, Ankylosaurid, and Montanaceratops as well, Pachyrhinosaurus, Albertosaurus, Ornitholestes, Troodon, lots of really cool, interesting mammals such as Didelphodon and Climotes, examples like that. And Champsosaurus, another cool animal it lived with. So it was quite a diverse ecosystem, and it's cool that we've got another animal that really describes that really cool ecosystem there, and it's really, really beautiful. I do love how the horns come out on the specimen, and I think it's just a beautiful animal. How can you not love Regaliceratops? So Annoying did a really great job with that, so let them walk off and do their thing. So they're gonna probably do their social animation thing, I can tell. Oh, no, here they are. Watch this. Gotta do their social animation. Well, watch that. Why not? Beautiful. Okay, now they can run off, do their thing. They're going to do it again. Oh, we'll just make sure they're off doing their own thing. But we're going to move on to the next animal. This next one was done by Swift Wyvern. Really, really cool. We've got a paleo edit of the Dimetrodon, which I'm really, really excited to get stuck into, because this guy really did need a paleo edit, so we're going to get stuck into this one. So we've finally got here Dimetrodons. So let's pause it and have a look at the one from the movie. This is probably my favorite skin, so I'm going to go with this one because I really like the skin. But you can see here a lot of the changes are made. You can see it doesn't have that T-Rex-like skull from the movies. You can see this is much more based on actual specimens of Dimetrodon that we have. And Dimetrodon actually has a really, really interesting skull. It's a synapsid, and the only synapsid in the game, which means it only has one hole at the back of the head there. Diapsids have two, so that includes reptiles and dinosaurs and things like that. But what's really, really cool, and this is a great example of showing this off, is that these guys have quite a few different teeth. So these guys are heterodont, or they often get their name Dimetrodon, which means two measures of teeth, because they have kind of two sets of large and small teeth. They have one or two pair of caniform teeth, or large canines, on the premaxillars, you can kind of see there, on the maxilla, I mean. And they're large in size is also rooted in there as well, so that really gives them that kind of the actual name Dimetrodon is that teeth of two kinds, and it really shows that because these guys are mammal-like reptiles, or that's even though that's the incorrect term, really, they're more closely related to reptiles than they are to us in that regard, but they are quite close to us as well. You can kind of see that they're starting to get a lot of the features that mammals have. So, as I mentioned, things like multiple teeth types, and also a lot of other things that we're getting also because of this large crest that they have here. It's that thermoregulation, of course, that potentially could be. But yeah, really, really awesome. So I love synapsids. Synapsids are such cool animals. And yeah, so we're looking from there. The head's perfect. You can see the head's a lot less like just the Tyrannosaurus, but you can see those different in sizes. So really nice lip. They've got this really like a rounded skull look to them. It always comes around, and these large things there. They would have a synapsid as well. That one hole there with potentially an ear there. So yeah, really looking different. And then you move on to the sail. So you can see the sail isn't quite as round. You can see it kind of comes up here and then like that. There is some evidence that could have had like a exposed neural tips there, but we really don't know. And it's most likely a pathology as well, but it depends on your interpretation of it. And yeah, the body's all right. I'd say the tail's still quite a bit longer than it should be, especially in the better specimens we have. They didn't really have that long a tail. It's kind of that long dragging tail they probably didn't have. And another thing about these guys is that they wouldn't be quite scrawling like that. It's most likely that these guys would have been high walking a lot more, so a lot more like pretty much like a crocodile, and not really dragging their tail even, though potentially a little bit, but from what we know, they most likely were doing this kind of high walk, walking around, rather than kind of moving around and like scurrying about. Because these guys were quite large animals, don't forget, so they would have been potentially walking around in the high walk and maybe dragging the tail a little bit. But yeah, really, really cool. In terms of their skin as well, we really don't know that much about Dimetrodon's skin, but estimates or estimations from kind of related animals such as Estimatosaucus, it suggests that they would have been quite smooth and well provided with glands, and potentially also large scutes on their underbelly as well from other relatives, things like that. Though we really don't know too much about what their skin could be like. Though osteoderms are possible, and there is potential evidence of hair. Well, not evidence, but because they're closer to mammals, there is the possibility that these guys could have had some sort of hair, and there have been reconstructions with hair, but we really just don't know yet. We need some really good preservation of hair from the time, or a specimen just with so well preserved you can see the hair. But yeah, really, really awesome. How can you not love Dimetrodon? You can see how much nicer that face looks. That face just improves so much and really gives it that really cool, interesting look of the Dimetrodon, and really changes the teeth so they better fit the actual name of the animal, which is Dimetrodon, which means two teeth of two different kinds, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, really, really cool to see these guys. So we're going to let these guys run out and take their time. So Swift Wyvern did a really great job with that. So we're going to be moving on next. We've got everyone's favorite big giant animals. We've got here Diplodocus, also done by Swift Wyvern, which has done a wonderful job with this. We'll be showing them off. Beautiful. So let's pause it so we can get a good look at these guys in the sunlight. So we can see some of the major changes you can see on here. Obviously the skull. Uh, though the nostrils should possibly be, or most likely are, since it's quite similar to Varanids, the nostrils should be probably about down here or so. They should be down there. But the skull looks a little bit nicer. It really shows the really characteristic look of Diplodocus. See that quite long neck as well. But the biggest changes you can kind of see here are around the body. You can see those front legs have been quite thinned out. They're not like those really big elephant-like toes. And you can even see the comparison because you can see the kind of the footprints from here. You can see how Jurassic World Evolution 2 originally did it was that these guys had those four toes and things like that. But these guys have, in real life, their front limbs would have been very much like fleshy horseshoes with big thumbs sticking out there, which potentially used for like fighting or digging or whatever reason they would have been using it for. But you can see that's much more accurate to how Diplodocus would have had its foot in life. So that's actually really spot on. Really did a wonderful job with that. And you can see the body here. Also some little changes to the legs there. And the same thing on the back legs here. You can see only the first 3 digits on the back would have claws. So you can see these first 3 are kind of very much like, if you look at the back legs of a giant tortoise, they're actually quite similar. And the reason is that these guys potentially would have used them for digging nests and things. But you can see they're also come out and quite curved in like that, which really gives them a really cool look. And they have this large pad at the back to support the weight, very similar to things like elephants and giant tortoises, things like that. And then you can see that quite long tail. It goes all the way in there. You can see a little bit better on this guy. Long tail goes all the way back. It would have been really cool if they added some more of the spikes on here, because what we have from skin impressions that there potentially would have been quite a few spikes and things going down the tail of some Diplodocids. It would have been a cool little thing, but I think it still looks nice how it is. Really, really cool. Really, really awesome to see a nice Diplodocus. The only thing I can see that's like blatantly wrong is the nostrils, but yeah, came out really, really wonderful. Really great job, Smith. Keep saying it wrong. Swift Wyvern. I think that's much better. So let them walk out and do their thing. They're probably going to do a social thing, I reckon. But we'll let them do their thing. But now we're moving on to another new species. Let's have a look over in the aviaries. Another new species. This one was done by HyperGST. We have got Xenopterus, I believe you say that, or Xenuanterus. I think that's the right way to say it. Xenuanterus. We'll say it like that. We'll follow this one because this one's got the prettiest skin. So let's have a look at this guy. So this is Jeholopterus or Xenuanterus. These guys are a boreopterid pterosaur. These guys come from the Lower Cretaceous, so about the Aptian stage, from the Yixian Formation in Liaoning, China, and contains the one species Genuamterus longirostrus, which is described and named by Lu Jingchang, which is pretty cool. It was named by this paleontologist in 2005, and is actually named after Sun Zhenten, which is the person that gave the fossils to Z, which is pretty cool. And the one specimen is known, but it is complete, and it comes from the Yixian Formation. Though there is a second, larger partial specimen with the rear half of the body that is known, which is really, really cool. And you can see that type specimen, the skull of the type specimen is about 54 centimeters long, and has this rectangular crest, as you can see, that extends kind of part way down. And they also have an eye socket in the shape of an inverted triangle, which is, and also quite typical of their group, the Bryopteridae. Let's see if we can get one good example here. You can see they've got quite a large amount of teeth, lots of needle-shaped teeth in their mouths. And a distinguishing characteristic is that their longest teeth is actually more than 10 times the shortest, because there's a lot of variation within that. And it's believed to be about 86 teeth in the upper and 86 teeth in the lower jaw, so we'll think about that. Another really cool characteristic is that the third pharynx of the wing digit is the same length, so which is pretty interesting. And there's a couple of cool features in there that suggest that it may have some features that are not too similar to other more advanced pterosaurs, but may actually be similar to things like Phylongus, which I've covered before as well. And this guy would actually have been quite large for a Boreolepid pterosaur. These guys would have been about 3.5 to 4 meters in wingspan, so about 11 to 13 feet, which is pretty cool. And these guys are kind of, they're related to the Arahagian group, so they're Boreopterus, and Guadraco is kind of one of their relatives, or potentially even closer to some other animals like Locthodraco, which is kind of that group. Ornithochiromorpha, so related animals distantly to like Ornithochirus and things like that, which is really, really cool. But in terms of ecology, it would have lived with a few other pterosaurs, such as Phylongus and Yixianterus and things like that. And it actually would have spent less time on land and more times on the air or on cliffs, because they have quite robust forelimbs but weak hind limbs, so they would have been much more adapted to flying, which is another really interesting fact about them. In terms of their diet, because of the area they're found in with all these laked ecosystems and things, they would have most likely eat a lot of aquatic prey, so things like fish and amphibians, and it most likely would have hunted these while swimming or kind of diving and things like that, and with their needle-shaped teeth as well. Either swooping in and kind of diving to grab them, or potentially doing some swimming, like almost like gannets or something. And they would have trapped prey with their teeth, which is quite similar to the modern dolphins, like river dolphins, like the Ganges river dolphins, a great example. They have a lot of really needle-shaped teeth to catch prey with, so is quite an interesting analogy in that regard, which is really, really cool. Really, really awesome animal. I do love this guy. SGYT did a really great job with that. Really, really cool. So let you guys do your thing. So next we're going to be moving on to some carnivores. Next one's done by Pickle. How can you not love Pickle? It's nice to see Pickle coming back for some things going on. So we're going to be starting off with the Megalosaurus by Pickle. But this one's quite good because there's been a few remakes and like remasters of Megalosaurus, because it's not the most accurate one. But you can see this one actually came out really, really nice. You can see they've got this really, really boxy skull going on. There are Megalosaurids, so related animals such as Torvosaurus and things like that. And the first dinosaur discovered, so that's really, really cool. You can see the kind of it's almost like Tyrannosaurs before Tyrannosaurs. They've got like a very boxy skull going on. And I like how he added the crest to make it look a little bit nicer. Really, really nice. A nice boxy skull as well. And a little bit extension on the arms as well. Really, the main changes that needed to happen were on like the head there, because those really big crest things were looking really, really weird. But I think I like how this guy's come out a lot. Most likely based on a really good skeletal done by Dan, I think it is. Really did a wonderful job. You can see the kind of the hands are all proper and all that, and proper teeth as well. Looks really, really nice. A lot of these edits are pretty minor, but you can see just how much these minor edits really make the animal feel more realistic with that boxy skull of Megalosaurus and the kind of thinned out body. You can see the pubic boots also a little bit more accentuated. And I believe the tail is a little bit longer as well. It's weird because Jurassic World Evolution has an issue and Jurassic Park has an issue of making a lot of their dinosaurs' tails way too small. But I think it came out really, really nicely, this edit, with the large claws and things like that. Really, really nice edits. And I think like the texture as well fits it quite well, even though that's not been changed. But yeah, Pickle, I think he done a really awesome job with this guy and should be proud. Definitely kind of the best Megalosaurus edit I've kind of seen so far, I think. Well, it came out wonderfully and really does look like the real-life animal. So yeah, really, really cool. So let these guys run off and do their thing. Next, we're going to be moving on to... This one is done by definitely not Dilophosaurus. Definitely not Dilophosaurus. This is... Australovenator, so kind of one of the new animals coming in, so let's give it a release. Love the colors on this guy, but I want to get a good example. So this is Australovenator, Megaraptorin, first one in the game. And we can see there's some minor changes here. The skull looks a lot more conical than it was before, and we really don't know that much about Megaraptorids. Most of them are quite fragmentary. But based on kind of what we know of Australovenator and its relatives, I think this is actually pretty spot on. I think the skull has been edited to make it a lot more like conical, because these guys did a lot less hunting with their jaws like Tyrannosaurids would. They did a lot more hunting with their claws, and they actually were able to adapt to semi-pronate their hands, or to basically move their hands in that pronated position, like like the rabbits you would in Jurassic Park, to be able to better catch prey with their arms, and it's really, really cool. So you can see they've got that longer skull there, a little bit longer neck, I think, as well. You can see the arms have been beefed up quite a bit. The thing with the original Australovenator is that everyone was kind of weird about it, because like the most distinguishing feature of Australovenator is its large hands and claws, and they were shrunk in the original model. But you can see they're definitely given a bit of love here, and you can see these very large claws. I would argue you can make these claws even a lot bigger than this, because this looks kind of the minimal representation of probably like the bone core of, and the like minimal keratin you can put on that. But considering a lot of modern animals and how much keratin they can have on their claws, I imagine you could definitely extend these claws up quite a bit and make them quite long, which would be really cool to see. Really, really cool to see those arms kind of properly accentuated and things like that, which would have been their main killing thing. They would have most likely just grappled and tried to take down prey. You can also see it's a little bit leaner. The one thing I do kind of miss, though, is that they kind of straightened the back, because the original model had this kind of like smooth crest, which I actually quite liked. I thought it really gave Australovenator something quite distinct. But it is speculative, and that's mostly personal preference. But this flattened version still looks nice. I would like this version, like the proper anatomy, but with the crest. I think that would make it, in terms of a design, much better. But I still think this is quite cool. You can see the quite long legs and stuff these guys have got here, and longer tails. So these guys kind of thought of being Coelurosaurs, but really they go everywhere over the dinosaur family tree, especially in theropods. But the most recent belief that these guys are kind of Coelurosaurs, related to almost like Tyrannosaurs and things like that. So it's kind of the opposite way. Kind of T-Rex got big jaws, and Australovenator and like Mappy Macrothorax got big arms to basically grab prey with. So it's a really interesting comparison, especially around the later Cretaceous when Mappy would have been living in South America and Tyrannosaurus would have been living in North America. So it's a really interesting comparison there. And I just like this guy. I really like how the Australovenator came out. These small edits, as I mentioned, really make the animal feel much more realistic. And the only thing I could say to basically change it to make it perfect, I think, was add back that kind of soft tissue crest and make these claws a little bit bigger in terms of their keratin extent. I think minimally those are fine, but that's kind of really conservative. If you wanted to make them really big, like I've seen some art basically by like Henry Sharp, who's done like a muscle study that really accentuated those large claws, almost like falcons and stuff like that. I think that'd look really, really nice on a Australovenator like this and really give it something interesting. But yeah, really came out nicely. So yeah, great job there. Definitely not Dilophosaurus, and this is definitely not Dilophosaurus, as you can definitely see. But yeah, next we've got Detanglong, so a new animal. Really excited to talk about this guy. This is done by Neural with a 0 instead of an O in the middle. I'll obviously put the names in the description, things like that, but we're going to be talking about this guy. So this is a really cool animal. This is Detanglong, or Detanglong, I believe how you pronounce that. So this is obviously a really cool new animal that we have to talk about. So these guys are an extinct genus of Carcharodontosaurian theropod, which are Tentodurine as well. So these guys would have been related, as I mentioned, to things like Mapusaurus and Giganotosaurus and Carcharodontosaurus. But these guys are from a little bit earlier. These guys are from the early Cretaceous, the Barremian to the Abtian of now southeastern China. So these guys would have been found in 2011, found in Detang, in the region there. And people are like, oh, large theropod. It was described in 2014. And basically the name is Detanglong, which is the Detang basin where it was found. And Long is dragon. So it's basically the Detang dragon, which is pretty cool. These guys are only known really from one specimen, which covers a hip bone and vertebrae, some sacral vertebrae, parts of the pubic bone, and things like that. It's not really that well known, but we know it comes from a layer in the Zhenglong Formation, which is from about the early Cretaceous. So this would have been like when the Carcharodontosaurs kind of were common across most of the world, which is pretty interesting. In terms of its size, though, these guys were large predatory animals. They got about 8 to 9 meters, which is believed to be. So it's 26 to 30 feet long. So in that range of like mid-sized to large predators, so quite big. And the specimen has a preserved length of about 0.7 meters or about 2 feet. So that's what we have of the actual specimen. And in terms of its phylogeny, these guys are really basal in the Carcharodontosauria, which is really interesting. And quite basal to Tentodurine, and actually has a few traits of Coelurosauria, but carries a danger of these guys were potentially like basal Coelurosaurians, which is very not true. But they show that indeed these guys could be a basal Coelurosaur, and would be a first basal Coelurosaur of that size. But there's kind of been put all over the place. It's most recently considered Carcharodontosauria because of some of the features. But they're also shared with Megaraptorans, so it's a really early animal and is really interesting in terms of its cladistics as well. Yeah, I think it's really cool, and I really like the patterns that it's got here. I like kind of the banding down the tail. Neural 1 did, I think, a great job of converting the Allosaurus, and really cool to talk about a new dinosaur and a really kind of obscure one, but I still think it's quite cool. Really awesome animal here, I do say so myself. Really like the skull there, because of course it's only known from a few vertebrae, so this and parts of the hip bones. So anything about this is going to be quite speculative. So I think he did a quite job, or they did quite a good job at creating something that's unique and distinct and worth being a species in Jurassic World Evolution 2. So yeah, I think that's really awesome. So we'll let them go off and do their thing. Really beautiful. So yeah, I think this would be a great place to end the video. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys like and subscribe. Always remember to hit the little bell icon to get notified of anything. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe, and bye-bye.